We are recording the interview of Red Ketcham. This interview is being conducted by Jennifer Seavey from the Wright State University's Veteran Voices Project. Also in attendance are Bob Seitz and Bob Stuckey. This interview is being recorded at the Champaign Aviation Museum in Urbana, Ohio. It is 10 a.m. on February 6, 2016. Okay, go ahead, Red.
My name is Gailard Ketcham. The redhead come from a redhead when I was small, faded out a few years ago. Then I was born in the little town of Portersville, Ohio. I was born to the parents of Harry and Eunice Ketcham. Let's say Portersville, Ohio, and Perry County. I have two sisters, Marietta and Bonnie Jean, two younger sisters, Lois Pauline and Daphne Rosalie, a brother, James. So a family of 6. We were very happy. We belonged to the United Methodist Church, the Champion Grange, 4-H Club, Boy Scouts of America, participated in small orchestra playing the violin, schooling, one-room school, Portersville, grade 1 and 2, Sayre School, 3 through 8, McLean High School, Crooksville, Ohio, 9 through 12. Graduated on May the 24th of 1944 with a class of 8 boys and 14 girls. It was a very small school. Hobbies, doing things that all the young boys like to do. Mind his parents, tease his sisters, of course. Play ball, hike in the woods, go hunting in the fall when I'm old enough to carry a gun. Also to stay out of trouble as much as possible. So that's the way we started out. All right, so we lived in this little town, Route 37, located along the county line of Morgan and Perry counties in here in Ohio. The year I was born, my father built a filling station. He built this station and he worked, as you can see here. He was his own mechanic, owned the business. We had that until about 1938. Of course, the Depression hit after World War back at that time in the 30s. So we lost our business. We lost everything we had. We were very fortunate that the people that held mortgage on our properties, the banks and so on, my father's credit was still good. We got to keep our home. So we lived there. And then the war broke out in December of 1941. I can remember that very plain on a Sunday morning, sitting and listening to the radio, President Roosevelt making the announcement. Pearl Harbor had been attacked. Well, this changed things very, very fast. And everybody was taken care of. So here I am, 15 years old, and going to school. Well, there's no industry in our particular area. And in May of 1942, immediately after the war started, my father made a remark, I'm going out to find a job at a factory someplace. He said, I don't know where I'm going, but he said, I've got to go. He was a World War I veteran, very, very conscientious. So he took off, he left a family at home that left myself, my mother, 2 younger sisters, and a baby brother in Portersville. He wound up in Dayton, Ohio, building the machine guns like we got the laying right here in front of us. Well, he was fortunate he had a brother living in Dayton, so he had a place to stay, because at that time you couldn't beg, borrow, or steal a sleeping room, let alone try to find a house. It took him over 2 years to find a house. So now to say, the family's down there. I became the man of the house at age 15. Thank God for the training that he gave me while growing up. I was able to take care of most of the problems that arose during this time, because he would only get home one day at a time, maybe every 3 or 4 months. So this went on until we finally found a house. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to high school. It was 10 miles to high school. We lived in a rural area. I rode a school bus about an hour and a half every morning, an hour and a half every night to get home. I had to give up all activities. I couldn't get in the basketball teams, I couldn't be on the baseball teams, because practice after school I had no way home. We had an old car, of course, but we only had 4 gallons of gas a week, to use, so it had to be used for when we needed the car to go anyplace. But when I would go to town, see, it was 10 miles from the closest town. We had the towns of McConnellsville, New Lexington, Corning, and Crooksville. And we lived right in the center, 10 miles any direction you went. Well, whenever I had to go into town, I would go around to the neighbors. Do you need anything? If you do, I will pick it up for you. If we had an empty seat in the car, you can go along on special businesses. I was kind of a chauffeur for a lot of people in a little community. I think there was only about 5 automobiles in the little town of 40 or 30 houses. So everybody shared and shared alike. I was always constantly busy. Say with a lot of elderly people and so on, we didn't have electricity. We did not have electricity in our area until after the World War. So we had kerosene lamps and cold outhouses. So, but anyhow, everybody needed help because all the young men in the community was gone. In our little surrounding area there were 22 of us in the service. You take my family, my own family. My father was a family of 12, and there's 10 of us boys, all in the service, plus one uncle, a younger uncle. So there's 11 out of my family in the armed services. We represented all branches of the service. So we had a lot of representation. So anyhow, so here's this little village. I was one of the last young men to leave, and my services were needed, mowing their lawns, working in their gardens, and in the wintertime carrying coal and ashes and splitting kindling. I mean, I was always constantly busy. And we raised, in the summertime, we raised a large garden, and we canned the vegetables and so on, put them in the cellar and keep them, pick the apples and keep them in the bin. Let's say we were fortunate, we always had plenty to eat. Well, time was on very fast. So finally, come about time for graduation. Also, just before graduation, I enlisted into the Army Air Corps, the cadet program. I wanted to be a flyboy. So in February, I drove into the town of Zanesville, picked up the enlistment papers, signed them, brought them home. My parents said, well, if that's what you want, go with our blessings. So they signed it. I had to have 3 recommendations, character references, which was no problem. The family doctor, and we had a telephone service, and the people ran the phone switchboard was also a notary public, and had a good friend that ran a little filling station. So I had 3 people that graciously signed my references. So anyhow, time goes on, and see, my father's up there working, and all things, he worked on a 50 caliber machine gun, the Frigidaire division. So anyhow, I went into service. I had to go in, well, on the 17th day of May, I received my orders to report Fort Thomas, Kentucky on June the 1st. Got a phone call from Dayton, my father. Hey, I found a house. I'm coming down to pack up the house the last week of May. We're going to move on June the 1st. The same day I had to go into service. Well, you can imagine the flurry around that house, getting ready to go. Then we're going to move to a new town, new location. I didn't know where I was going. I was going into the service. So the day come along, and the day before, May the 31st. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, cars began to pull into our driveway, carrying boxes. They got out carrying boxes and baskets and everything, and carrying tables. They set up tables and so on. Well, it was all over. There's 150 people in our front yard. Out of 30 houses, 100 people, so people lived in this little village, and my father's garage business brought all these people in to get us oil. So they stayed about 2 hours and kindly left because we were getting ready to go, and many, many tears fell that day because we left. And anyhow, the next morning, on the first day of June, I got up real early in the morning and I drove to see my grandparents. They lived 4 miles away. So I got over there real early, sat down and ate breakfast with them. And soon the times I had to leave to get back so they could take me to the train. Well, my grandfather and grandmother walked out to the car with me, and I'll never forget. My grandmother, my grandmother took my hand and said, "Young man," said, "you are very much loved, old man." Said, "There's one thing," said, "I'd like to tell you." Said, "Wherever you go, whatever you do, put your trust in the Lord, He will carry you through." I have recalled that many, many times in my life. But that was her parting words. So anyhow, I drove the 4 miles back to Portersville, and about that time we had to go to the train. It was 10 miles away to the train. Well, I said goodbye to my sisters and my younger brother, and Mother and Dad took me to the train. Well, the train is on time, would be of course. That was at 11 o'clock in the morning. Now I took off for Fort Thomas, Kentucky. That afternoon, when we pulled out of the driveway, a moving van pulled back into the house to load the furniture to go to Dayton. So there we are. We went 2 different directions. I went one direction, my family went another. We did not know whether to ever see each other again at that time. Well, I reported to Fort Thomas, and then we were there for 6 days. D-Day hit. I was there at Fort Thomas. The next day, we got on a train and went to Amarillo, Texas for basic training. Well, we got into Amarillo, basically started training immediately, and about 2 weeks later, the Indian officer said, "Boys, we're sorry to tell you, you are not going to be aviation cadets. We lost many planes and men during the D-Day invasion. You will need aerial gunners for airplanes. You are going to gunnery school." Well, we got our basic training there. Of course, you take the basic training. It's standard basic training. Learning discipline, how to take orders, and so on. How to survive in the worst of conditions, and so on. See, I was there for 3 months, 90 days, and shipped us out to Kingman, Arizona. This was in 1944, June, August, September. We went to gunnery school. I was there about 10 weeks and finished up the gunnery school teaching my father was building the guns and I learned to fire them. Learned to use them. So anyhow, I graduated from gunnery school on the 11th Armistice Day of 1944. I got my wings pinned on my jacket that day. They gave me 14 days to go from Kingman, Arizona to Avon Park, Florida for my next phase of training, for overseas training. Well, of course that gave me a chance to come back through Dayton. So I come back through Dayton, got to see my new home, meet my new neighbors and so on. And but I didn't like this. I wanted to go back to Portersville, where all my friends were. So my grandparents, we had moved my grandparents into our house in Portersville, so we had a place to stay. So we spent a week down there before we had to come back to Dayton for me to get up and go to Avon Park. That short week went very, very fast. Getting to see a lot of people. And one of my cousins, one of the 10 cousins that happened to be come home, he was in the Air Force. He was a cook. And we got together and got to trade stories and so on. And see, I got to see a lot of my old friends. And then we got back to Dayton. Well, my father, I'll get ahead of myself here. When I came home, my father was working in the refrigerator, building the 50 caliber machine guns. So he asked for time off. Yes, you can have the time off. And his foreman says, he told his foreman that I just finished gunnery school. He said, bring that young man in with you to work tomorrow night. We're going to show him how those guns were made. So I went in with my father. He dropped me off at the main gate because I couldn't walk straight in. The foreman come out, picked me up. Went in past where my father was working. He said, Harry, he said, you've been standing here for almost 3 years doing those parts. And the part you're leaving, you don't know where it went to. He said, come with me and your son. We're going to take a tour. We started at the punch press, bare steel, and we fired that gun on the other end of the track when we got there. I got to see the whole operation how that gun was made. It's quite a thrill. So, anyhow, that's how I started my furlough. So anyhow, down to Portersville, see the friends, come back. On the 29th day of November, I caught the train to Avon Park, Florida, right outside the Avon Park, outside Tampa. There is where I was assigned to my crew, the 10 men that I was to fly with. Well, in gunnery school, I was trained to be the ball turret gunner. The ball turret gunner on that B-17 was my position. So we got together there, and of course we had the overseas training. The pilots learned to fly formations, and the navigators learned to get us there and back. And we had air-to-air gunnery training and strafing and everything, teaching us how to operate the equipment. Well, on May the 20th, 1944, or March the 20th, they took us to Hunter Field in Georgia for assignment, and we didn't know where we was going. Got there, and then from there to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. They issued all new uniforms and everything, all brand new stuff, and put us on the train and took us into New York, and the boat docks. We boarded the Queen Elizabeth on the 20th of March and sailed for, at the time we didn't know, but we sailed for Glasgow, Scotland. We arrived in Glasgow, Scotland on April the 1st, Easter Sunday, my 19th birthday. I'll never forget that day. Well, I get over there, and there was 57 crews plus 20,000 other soldiers, all different branches on that Queen Elizabeth going across. Wall-to-wall people. So let's say we got over there on the 1st. Well, it took us to an embarkation point, and there was 5 crews out of the 52 that went out at Avon Park assigned to the 306 bomb group. So I was in the 306 bomb group and the 369 squadron. Well, here we are on the 4th. The 306 bomb group flew its last mission. On the 14th day of April. So I had 10 days from the 4th to the 14th to get off the ground. My crew did not get our first combat mission. So I am not a combat soldier. Germans found out I was coming, so they quit. So anyhow, now I'm out of a job. Well, now you take all those small countries over there, all over the war zone. Our maps were now obsolete. They lost their borders and so on. So they formed what they called Project Casey Jones. They chose the 305th and the 306 bomb groups for this project. They grabbed me to be a photographer. They trained me to be a photographer, aerial photographer, to map all over the European and African continents. So for the next 14 months, after the war was over, that was my job. But now, it takes time to change from combat to non-combat, get the cameras and so on in these planes to strip the armament off the planes and get them ready to go. So there was a time period there. Well, they sent me to camera school. I took 8 weeks training. But when that was all over, the planes weren't ready. Well, with all the men over there, entertainment was a premium because you had all these boys coming back off the battlefield, coming through the embarkation points, Southampton, and Le Havre, France, and so on, coming home. You had troops coming both ways, the boys going home and the recruits coming in. Well, somebody got the idea, the 8th Air Force, to take the bases and have a contest to see who could have the best, put on the best performance. Well, my buddy and I here, Harold Van Diver, volunteered for this project. And lo and behold, they took us. Well, our job was to put together a 15-minute skit to be judged by the British Broadcasting Company, and the contest was held on the Palladium Theatre in London, the big theatre over there. So anyhow, lo and behold, 306 Bomb Group won the contest. Well, this was in July. So anyhow, we got back to our air base after winning the contest, and the commanding officer called us back into his office. He said, "Boys," he says, "you made history for the 306 Bomb Group." He said, "Your reward is you're to put together a 2-hour variety show, and we're going to put you on the road, hospitals, embarkation points, so for the next 4 months, we were relieved all duties and did nothing but travel with a GI show. All over England, France, and Germany, one trip to the Rock of Gibraltar, and for 4 months, that's all we did." Well, now then, they've got these planes all ready, they're getting ready to disperse them, and they're going to move the 306 Bomb Group to Gibraltar, Germany, so they would be closer to the European theater for their photography work there. So they called us back in off the road with the show, and we formed a convoy to move the air base from England to Gibraltar, Germany. Well, I got a job in driving a truck. I drove in the convoy, I drove a truck. We had about 100 vehicles. All I had on my truck was a little weapons carrier called a 4x4. I carried K rations. I was a noon meal for the convoy. So we would drive 50 minutes, rest 10, drive 15, rest 10. So the last stop before noon, I would drive down the line, my buddy and I'd hand out the K ration, the meal to all the other drivers. Then I'd pull off the side of the road and wait till the convoy moved on. Well, you take it, the K rations, you had a little can of beanie weenies or Spam or something. And they say it was cold weather now while we went to the convoy. So I'd take my can of K rations, punch a hole in it, raise the hood on my truck, set it in on the engine block. So while I was driving this last hour, I had a hot meal at the other end. Well, when we made the stop, I got out and take my can out of the raise the hood, a little steam coming out of that little hole I punched in it, you know. The other boys would see that. I said, "Well, how did you do that?" Well, I said, "Last stop, I just set it in on the engine block, but I didn't tell them to punch a hole in it." So you can imagine, about 2 days later, we're going down about 30 minutes after the last stop for lunch. Kapow. That can of beans or something would explode and all over the engine, and it looked like the truck was on fire. Down the track, one after another. And they said, "Hey, Why didn't you tell these other guys to punch a hole in it? Nobody told me. I just common knowledge, you know. So anyhow, that's one little thing that happened that I'll never forget. So anyhow, we got into Gielstadt, Germany. We arrived there. We arrived there on New Year's Eve of 1945, and it was quite a privilege and quite an awakening to drive through all the devastation to across it. We drove across France and Germany, through all those towns that we bombed and tore up and so on. You can't imagine, I mean, the devastation. You drive in town, be nothing but a pile of bricks. You wonder how anybody existed through all that. It was quite an awakening ride. So anyhow, I got into Gielstadt. I was only there about 10 days, and they sent me back to England to help tear up another air base because they didn't have their planes quite ready to go. So I went back to England, another air base, got it packed up, got it done. I come back to Gielstadt and said, hey, we're ready for you now. I said, get on the plane here, you're going to North Africa. So I got on the plane and flew into Port Lyote, North Africa, just right below the Rock of Gibraltar. Because we had a group of planes on the Rock of Gibraltar, and they're Port Lyote, Marrakesh, and Dakar. It was a 306 bomb group. So I was there from February until June when I come home. So, see, flying aerial photographer, here's what it kind of looked like where I was sitting in the plane, the camera between my knees, and it was a very interesting thing, and I say it took us 14 months to complete the job. Now you got that satellite going up there, do it in 4 hours. That's progress. So anyhow, I completed my duty on June the 11th. It was my last mission I flew in photography. They loaded us on 19 of us on a plane and took us into Istres, France, right on our way home. So we got into Istres, had to sit there for about a week waiting on a boat to come in. Found a little boat with the name of the USS Tufts, a little victory ship. Well, I went across on the Queen Elizabeth, which is about 1,000 feet long. This little thing is about 450 feet long. We spent more time under the water than we did on top because we got into a storm coming back across the Atlantic. You never seen such a bunch of sick men, seasick. Then anyhow, we arrived in New York on the 13th of June. And what I decided was to see the Statue of Liberty again. See all that time and the activities I had and so on, and say not being a combat soldier, but the Project Casey Jones, a very critical job. So I feel that I did my job the best I could, the best of my ability, and so I came home, got home, and they sent me to Camp Atterbury, Indiana, to be discharged. Well, I did not have a job before I went in service. When I came home, I had nothing. I was in a new environment because I came into Dayton from a little country home, and I was lost. I mean, this big city just didn't appeal to me. So I went back down to Portersville and stayed with my grandparents for about a year and a half. And I should have gone to college, but GI Bill of Rights. But from our little community down there was nobody ever went to college. I didn't have the background for it. High school, they didn't have the courses that teach us, and I never encouraged too much to go to college. So I did not take advantage of it. So I had about 4 years of very hard going, trying to make a living. Of course, I had a girlfriend, and I had left met her on my 18th birthday before I went in the service. I knew her for 2.5 months before I went in. Well, we picked up where we left off, but we couldn't get married. I didn't have anything to offer. So finally, I landed it. I come back to Dayton, give in to the city, come into Dayton, got a job, and did pretty well. And in the meantime, I married my wife. We had one daughter, and the first 2 or 3 years was pretty rough, but we survived. And one day, my neighbor, my younger brother's good friend, worked at Frigidaire. He come home, he says, "Hey Gailard," he says, "there's an opening in Frigidaire, and I talked to my boss. He wants to see you tomorrow morning." So I went in with him. I was working a night shift for the National Biscuit Company, making ice cream cones of all things. And low wages, but anyhow, he said, "Got an opening there in Frigidaire." So I went in and talked to the gentleman, a man by the name of Cup, Marvin Cup. And I talked to him, and he and I hit it off real well. He hired me on the spot. That was pennies from heaven. I was making $1.35, and I started Frigidaire at $1.69. You can imagine what that meant. Well, my ambition when I got to Frigidaire was to get into the service department, use my hands, because my father had taught me in a garage business before I went into the service. And when I was in the service, I had a lot of mechanical things I did. So I got into Frigidaire, and I was there about 1.5 years, and I got the break to go into the service department. Went into what they called the service technical department. And I excelled in that. And I got a good position. I later became an instructor, teaching other men how to work on the Frigidaire household appliances. And that went on for several years, and I say, I can't remember ever hating to go to work, because my job was interesting. I got to travel. I became a troubleshooter on all the Frigidaire products. And I traveled all over the United States and Canada and every place else. So I say I wound up with a good position. I had one daughter, and we raised her, and my wife was one of these that she always liked to see what's on the other side of the hill or around the curve, so we traveled as much on vacations and stuff. And of course, took the daughter with us. Well, when she got up to get a job, she wound up at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And her knowledge of her country, of all places to start a job, would be in headquarters. She didn't know a buck private from a 4-star general. Well, she got into the headquarters office. She excelled there, and she had a very good career. And so I say, all in all, I feel that I've had a very good career, my military service, a lot of things. Today, I'm like the other gentleman we had here. Urbana here now is my second home. I lost my wife 4 years ago, and I have nothing else to do. So I come up here and got introduced to the Champagne gal that we're rebuilding out here, the B-17. So this is my second home now. I still go out and put on presentations. I have a presentation, history of the flag of the United States, that I have used in many schools and so on. I have a history of the Frigidaire project during the war, which I put on yesterday. I gave a presentation yesterday, and I keep myself quite active. I was at the honor flight in 2007. I was privileged to go to honor flight. I have a little story I'd like to put in here that a lot of people don't know. Robert Dole helped to build it was responsible for putting the World War II Veterans Memorial. Well, in high school, there were 17 young boys, and only one did not come back. And that boy happened to be Robert Dole's radio operator and on the battlefield. They were in Italy during the war, at the very last of the war. On the 14th day of April, 1945, this boy was killed. Robert Dole was out there pulling his body off the battlefield when he got shot. Now this boy my sister married his brother. So he and I were very good friends. We went to high school together, played basketball together. We dated the last night he was home before he went into the service. Well, see, he got shot. And then this incident happened. Well, they built a memorial there, and my family made a nice donation to the memorial. We got a phone call. Who was on the other end of the line with Bob Dole? He says, "Are you relative of Edgar Sims?" And here he's talking to his brother, my son or my brother-in-law. And he made about 4 different calls to the family and really told them the story of what happened to the young man. And that filled a big void that we did not know exactly what happened. So see, with the 10 cousins, the 1 uncle, and this boy, all very dear friends. So I get out in parades now. I still have my uniforms. I wear both my winter and summer uniforms yet. And I never turn an opportunity down to put it on, go on a parade, or somebody having an organization or making a presentation. I'll do it in the uniform. I've done it right out here several times. And so that's about where it is. I'll be 90 years old on the 1st day of April. I'm still in pretty good health. And I hope this bird out here, I hope to see it fly. I don't know whether I'm going to get to it or not, but that's my goal. Any other questions?
Yes. How did your wartime experiences affect your life?
Well, I think it learned me to discipline, how to listen to people doing things, to say with the my career working with the public, it was a big help because you got run across all walks of life. And see, the men that I was with, I think some of the finest young men in the country. And I had no regrets, many friends yet. So I think it's been a big help for me.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will watch this interview?
Well, there's a lot of unrest right now, just like, might say, 1939, 40, World War II broke out in Poland. Germans invaded them. We've got a lot of servicemen out there now still defending our country. I would like to see young men coming out of high school, taking at least 6 months or a year's training. I think it would help out a whole lot. Give them the discipline, take orders, be with other people, and think about somebody else besides themselves. I think that would be a great thing. Hope somebody pay attention to me.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I enjoy sharing. And if something I have said that somebody reads, sees this interview, it'd be worthwhile. So with that, I say I thank you very much for the privilege of being here today.
Well, that concludes our interview, and thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.